So you mentioned in the press kit that this is kind of a love letter to your hometown, and you mentioned also that you're trying to look at it from the outside going inward, kind of in a certain perspective. So I'm kind of wondering how you felt like you achieved that, and what changed, if anything, during the process of making this movie. Did anything change? Did anything differ from your original plan?
Yeah, well, it's kind of a little bit of a torn love letter to where we grew up in D.C. because it's kind of there's a lot of stress there right now, and that certainly changed. It's my brother Michael. He's our co-director. Please. We weren't expecting a lot of things to happen, and that certainly changed the tone of the story dramatically. And when we say that we were kind of going from the outside in, we kind of start the movie as kind of a fly on the wall, as a way of connecting with the characters, almost like a documentary. And we found that was it's a little bit more work to start connecting, start empathizing with the characters, but it has a much stronger payoff as a result of that. So it's a lot of work, but I think it's worth it.
It was very hard to make a boring party cinematic.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say about that. It always is.
Let's have each of you introduce yourselves real quick.
Hey, I'm Thomas Matthews. I'm co-director, co-writer, co-director of Lost Holiday.
I'm Michael Matthews. I'm also co-writer, co-director of Lost Holiday.
I'm Kate Lyn Sheil, and I act in Lost Holiday.
A little bit.
So, for you, knowing that you're playing somewhat of based on real characters, not necessarily. I mean, it's an outline of real characters. How did your approach happen? Did you take that exoskeleton kind of that they gave you and work with it and make your process happen, or did you take your process and try to make it work within the framework of what they were trying to do?
I think you said that incredibly eloquently and well, first of all. I would say the former. I think that they wrote a character that was so clearly defined in the script that it was kind of easy to work within the framework that they created. The character is based on a real person, but I thought that it might be distracting for me to meet that person. And so, I sort of took what they wrote and extrapolated and tried to relate it to my own life and craft a character, based on those various factors.
It is based off of real characters, but it certainly took on its own life. Because what we were shooting, the characters, they were loosely based off of true events, but we weren't trying to emulate anyone. And then once we actually got rolling, the movie kind of became its own thing that we were just trying to serve, kind of its own little animal. So we really were just trying to keep up with the movie in a weird way.
So when you get on set, you've done plenty of stuff before. So what was different about this set that you enjoyed?
I enjoyed a lot of things about the set. I had never been directed by two brothers before. That was an interesting experience. You're welcome. Yeah, they're coming for you. And each experience is obviously very distinct and unique. The movie is so totally entrenched in the location, which is where they grew up, and I had never really spent time in DC or Bethesda, Maryland in particular, and so that speaks so much to the material. But it was really it was a lovely experience, and we shot on film, and I love working with an incredibly detailed script. Improvisation is wonderful. I love that as well, but this was a specific kind of run and gun. Let's in 15 days complete this incredibly complicated neo-noir that includes some slapstick comedy and action scenes. There's a certain troupe-like element to the entire cast and crew that was fun.
Someday this will all be his.
Okay, Shreddy.
Sorry. So what do we do now?
God damn it!
So how stupid it is.
Sounds stiff.
Jesus!
Drop the trunk.
Oh, God, you fucking kidding.
Don't open the door.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm gonna climb into the fucking glass.
Pop the trunk.
There it is. He turned into a rock.
Hey, rich boy.
Huh?
Let me talk at you a sec.
Scatter.
Go. Go. Let's go faster. Let's go faster. Oh shit.
For me?
See, and you're great because you just set me up into my next question, which is you guys did this on 16 millimeter film in 15 days.
Yeah.
Was it something that you just wanted to try? Was it something that because films even big budget films nowadays aren't even made like that anymore? So what was it for that you just had to do it on 16?
It was a point of contention in the beginning because I'd worked on a few films that were shot on the Red, and I think that's a great camera, and you don't have to deal with worrying about the sun breaking into your film and destroying it before the movie's been seen by anybody.
Right, or changing reels, or
But
in the gates.
but I think that it was once we found out that we were going to get a donation from Kodak, I think we would have felt like total morons turning it down. Because we grew up watching films. There's certain things about film that are cinematic, and I think that since the film was about nostalgia and looking back and refinding home, it made sense for it to have an old school look.
Yeah, we also got a ton of help from the Panavision New Filmmakers Grant, and that helped us a long way with the camera package. And what Michael said, there was a kind of a texture, kind of a feel to it that we really wanted to be able to taste, of it kind of being sweet and cold at the same time, like the melancholy of being home and that weird gap of time between Christmas and New Year's when time kind of gets like stuck in a weird way, kind of a nice way, kind of a sad way too.
Yeah. I would assume you guys didn't put it on a board and cut it up though. You guys digitally.
One of these old we digitized it.
Do you think every filmmaker should try that once? Do you think it's an experience that a filmmaker should have, shooting on film?
Yeah, I mean, I think every filmmaker should have the opportunity to make a film. So I wouldn't say that you should say, I can only make this film on film, or I can only make this film on the Alexa. I mean, there's lots of different cameras. I think you just need to make sure that, as with, picking locations and casting, that the decisions are meeting the world that you're trying to create in the script.
Yeah, well said.
So what about this character that you aren't necessarily related to, that you took with you and that you wish that you were more like?
Good question. I feel like she, she's sort of in the middle of, great, a tiny existential crisis, which is something that I think we all can relate to, but she still is so, she's leaning forward into the experience, and she's incredibly confident in her decisions, even if maybe she's funneling her energy in, the wrong direction, or not the direction that will lead her to, finding the next step in her life. But I like her her boldness and her certitude. Yeah.
I have one thing to add. I think that to give Kate sort of a credit as well, I think there's an interesting, really great fit there, because there's one moment we were shooting where the rear view mirror kept falling off in that old rinky-dink car, and we were like, okay, so we're just sitting here stuck in this little clunker while there's a whole crew around us being like, what do we do next? And we're stuck at the car, and you said, is there anything else that could be filming other than the shot with the rear view mirror? And I thought that was so like Margaret, to be like, is there anything we could be doing to get out of this existential SHIT hole that we're in right now?
For Henry's character, I think that there's a certain amount of safety to being somebody else's foil, somebody else's friend who seemingly has
some freedom.
Yeah, there's also there's a maybe a false sense of having everything together when you're somebody's confidant or somebody's wingman, somebody's sidekick. And I think, like Margaret, he has to learn through kind of the hard way that he doesn't really have everything figured out, and he's got to get knocked down a little bit before he can actually start evolving a little bit more.
Nice, very cool. I want to know from each of you, what do you love about indie film?
Many things. The freedom to tell stories the way you want to tell them, primarily, I would say. And I think that all forms of art breed empathy, and it's such an important thing, particularly right now. It seems crucially important, and I think that indie film is a breeding ground for stories that breed empathy.
I think independent film audiences are much more open-minded to a different sort of storytelling, so that there's opportunities to tell a story in the indie space that you might not be able to do in the studio system. And I'm speaking as someone who hasn't worked in the studio system, but Thomas has.
Yeah, there's rules that we can bend a little bit more, because the audience won't require that we hold their hand through the whole thing. That we can actually give something a little bit more challenging, where the structure is a little bit off, maybe require a little bit more someone to lean in rather than feel kind of taken care of the whole time. It can be a little bit more jarring, and so therefore it's I think invigorating and good for you.
You know, I've been asking that question for 3 years to every interview I do, and you're the first person to ever mention the audience, so thank you very much. I appreciate it. No. So, as filmmakers, you look at you've seen this movie probably millions of times now, and and you look at it and you go, okay, I could have cut there tighter, I could have made this shot wider. But I don't want to know that from you. What I want to know from you guys is what you think you nailed.
Seems like you're very comfortable.
What did we nail? Oh my God, that's an incredibly hard question. I think that by the end of it, for me, every time I see the film, I do completely empathize with Margaret's character, and I think that if the team hadn't accomplished that it wouldn't have been worth it.
Yeah, like all of the hard work of trying to empathize, the connexus with the main character. I think the part I'm so happy with is the last couple minutes of the movie, when everything kind of comes together, and I think that's the real payoff, which is kind of incredibly sad and incredibly sweet, but it's actually moving forward. So I think it's kind of like tearing off a Band-Aid.
So how long are you in town for?
A whole week.
What are you gonna do?
I don't know, maybe babysit. Or just, party.
We've learned today that the now infamous Metro Rail duo had been best friends since the 6th grade until circumstance, jealousy, and betrayal led to murder.
But I'm actually a totally different person. It's not me anymore. And I kept thinking, what is it that I need right now? Everything just felt so stupid and arbitrary, and I didn't actually want
structure of one of her father's many chain restaurants. She was accompanied by a heavily tattooed white male.
Said anything about the cops? We don't need to call the cops. We can find her ourselves.
Montgomery County Sheriff's Department is asking anyone.
It's gonna be kind of fun.
It was like, in a night terror, how there's nothing holding your soul in your body.
How can I possibly run out?
And like gravity isn't keeping your heart and your limbs and your neck together. I don't know, in that moment I would have given anything for it to just be over.